And I believe we're live on the evening fireside chat edition of OpenFlip. We're here every Thursday night. Oh, there we go. Every Thursday night, 7 p.m. my time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And, oh, look, Brian's here twice now. Awesome. So, it's okay. We got doppelgangers in the house.
Yeah.
So we have Brian Bennett and Justin Aglio, I think I pronounced that right, on for our guests this evening, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
You can go first.
Okay, my name's Justin Aglio. That's close, Ken, and the G's silent. It's tricky, but I'm the director of innovation for the Montour School District, located right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I have 7 years charter school experience, 7 years traditional public ed. Most of my career is spent as a building principal, all the way K through 12, and I'm a big flipper. I flipped as a teacher back in the day, and I flipped as a principal, and right now as a central office person, I do a lot of flipping with staff, PD, myself, others, classes I take. So big guy on learning and doing what's best for kids.
Awesome.
And I am Brian Bennett. I've been a classroom teacher for this is my 7th year teaching this year. I've done private schools, charter schools, public schools, overseas schools. I'm currently in a public school teaching high school physics and chemistry. And of my 7 years teaching, I have flipped 6 of them, and I am back mainly because I want to reevaluate what I'm doing. I think this has turned into one of those things that you do, and I think I can still articulate it fairly well, but I want to make sure I can articulate it. So kind of that's the skew I'm taking. I'm like, let's step back for a minute and let's look through these pillars again and kind of see where we are.
I think that's an awesome process. I'll introduce myself. Most people should know me since they're registered for my course. But random people on the internet could watch this. So I'm Ken Bauer. I teach computing science here at the Tec de Monterrey in Guadalajara. I've been teaching undergrad computer science for about 20 years now, most of it here, as well as some in Canada when I was up there doing my PhD. And I've been flipping, I guess, 3-4 years. I can't remember. I tend to not so much call it flip anymore, but that's a whole different topic for a whole different day. And so what this course is about, people that are still starting to join, we have, to this count, 82 people registered on our mailing list.
Nice.
One of them is Brian. Actually, one of them is me on my Google account, so I see the email come in. And then only 18.
I think it was Ken was shocked by the numbers and he froze up on us.
Yeah, okay, I wanted to make sure it wasn't just me. So I'm not sure what he was saying about the numbers, but I did hear him say earlier, was that yesterday already? Wow, I listened in at the Wednesday morning show, and he was saying there's something like 72 people signed up now.
He just said 82, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think he was about to say only 18 people are live right now. I think that's what he was about to say. So
yeah,
we'll find out.
Yeah, and this first week is always tough, especially in like the CMOOC thing where you're doing your own space. Have you ever done a CMOOC, Justin? Something like this where you're...
No, not at all.
Yeah, so I've kind of done this, and I'm sure Ken will mention it if he ever unfreezes. But the idea is that you run a course, but you use all your own stuff. So you use your own blog, your own Twitter account. And I'd never done it until this thing called DS106, which is like a design and storytelling course that's run out of the University of Mary Washington, and they open it up to everybody. And that was the first time I had jumped in, and so all of our blogs are feeding to the main open course site. So I can go to the Ken site, and I'm actually doing that right now to see how many more people have written. But everything we write around this class is fed into here. So I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, and it's cool because everything's in English and Spanish. There's people writing in all kinds of languages. There's a guy from Greece that I've been talking with already, who's never flipped before, so he wants to check it out. So it's really neat to see the different people that are coming into a class like this. Just out there available on the web. If you Google stuff, you could find links to blogs and Ken's class. And so I think a great way to democratize the process,
There he is.
Thanks
hey,
for
Ken, welcome
over,
back.
guys. My internet just totally hiccuped, I guess. I heard Justin say something and then gone.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'll be more quiet.
So I think it's interesting. No, yeah, I think you were saying that I was being disconnected. It's going to be an interesting group this time. I did this last year, and there was like 60 people, and 45 actually completed. So I think we could reach those numbers of a lot of these people that are kind of dormant and trying to figure things out. One thing that's important to talk about is some of us that have been using blogs and using Twitter and using all this technology for years, it's just normal, whereas other people are struggling to set up a WordPress account and they forget to, say, click on the email to confirm that they're them, and there's all these little details that we forget about, and that's why I like this first week to reach out to people. I've been answering a lot of people's emails, so if you have any problems, email me. Or catch us on Twitter, but some people, they just don't get Twitter yet. So what I like about this group, Brian, is that Brian was on one of our morning chats, I think, with Andrew and I think Kate. I'm trying to remember who else was there.
That was Kate and Alan and Nancy White yesterday, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, and, I realized. So I'm going to interrupt. I realized
Go ahead.
I didn't think I would be able to do the morning ones, but my schedule, I've got that's like a dead half hour. Not a dead half. It's like part of my prep hour Wednesdays because we have early dismissal for students for our PD in the afternoon. So my planning hour actually starts at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. So I can actually like do a morning thing now.
Cool. Because it works good for Kate. She's finished at 11:01 and then she jumps on at 11:05.
Well, there you go.
Wow.
Anybody's welcome as long as we don't fill up that magic bar of 10. Anybody can join us.
Yeah.
And I did something similar this setup for an Agora project here in Guadalajara with a bunch of professors that are here locally in Guadalajara from the University of Guadalajara. And it was really hard to get participants to join us in the Google Chats. It was an 8-week thing as well. And it wasn't until week 4 that we broke down this kind of barrier that they all started joining in. And the last week was a blast. There were so many people knocking on the door to get into the chat that we had to kick people out.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's
you
great.
rotate through.
So hopefully we get there. So what I'll ask you guys is why should teachers be blogging? Everyone's used to, especially a newer generation, of just using Facebook for everything, or some other medium. What's the draw? Why should you blog, Brian? Now that you've kickstarted your blog.
Yeah. I think for me, I kind of went through, people talk about like the Twitter cycle of like getting in and not really knowing what to do, and then you realize like, oh man, I want to be in this all the time, and so you're just always there, and then you kind of get into overflow mode, and you don't really know what to do again, and you realize that you have to step back, right? And so I guess my blogging story would be like, I thought maybe I should blog, when I joined Twitter, and so I tried to set up a WordPress one, but WordPress is kind of hard to set up. Like on WordPress.com, I'm hoping it's easier now for people, but I remember being like, this is really weird. And I didn't know
the interface is really weird, actually.
Yeah, the Calypso thing, like it's neat the way they're restructuring. But anyways, that's another day.
It opens tabs all over the place, and it confuses me.
I don't know how to use the sidebar. Like there's all the new options there and whatever. So I started writing in 2010 maybe, and I would write about my labs, and I found actually in 2010 I discovered open source software, and I read this old post from 5 years ago where I had installed Homebrew on my Mac, and I didn't know how to use it, but it kind of got me into this whole thing of doing my own stuff, and then I stopped for a while, and I went to a conference, and I met Jeff Utecht, who's a big ed tech dude. And he went to my flipping session. I talked about flip classrooms, and he took me to dinner, and he was like, you need to have a website, you need to blog, you need to do this and do that. And I was like, all right, man, yeah, let's do it. And so I started branding myself all over the place. I was the flipping guy, and I was doing all this stuff, and I was writing for an audience, and then a year ago, or a year and a half ago, I was like, why am I doing this? And so I stopped writing for a while. Yeah. I kind of went into the depression stage of I don't enjoy writing anymore. So I slowed down, and now I've just after working with you and Alan and Jim Groom and all the guys I mention all the time, I was like, I'm just going to write what I want to write. Forget about, people read it, cool. People don't read it, whatever, no big deal. But I think, so all that to say, for me, I kind of went through this process where now I realize that blogging for me helps me process things I want to do or things I've already done. So I've got 2 or 3 listed in my notebook. Like I've done 2 labs this week, and I really want to sit down and process the steps my students went through because it'll help me improve it for next year. So it's all about reflection. If people read it, sweet. It's really just I write for me is what it gets down to. And that took me 5 years to learn.
Yeah, I think so too, and I've actually been dormant since probably April. My only blog posts are, here are the slides for the talk I'm giving this week. Because I always like to release all the stuff I talk about online. What about you, Justin?
So I had a lot of time to think about this while Brian was talking, and I actually started tweeting a lot as a principal just to kind of share all the great things teachers and students are doing. And then I started getting questioned, like, why are students in these projects? Why are they in the hallways playing, robotics in the hallway? Why aren't they in class learning? And so I started thinking to myself, well, I really need to kind of get a personal message out there why we're doing these things as a school to the large school community. And so I started writing blogs as a principal, monthly blogs to all the parents and the world, and about what is innovation in our school? What is why we do project-based learning in kindergarten? Why do we, just these big pedagogical things while we're doing things. And so when they're seeing all these pictures and these newsletters of kids doing things, they kind of have a more understanding what these things we're doing are. But then I went to this year, I'm at a large school system right outside of the city of Pittsburgh, and it's a very traditional school district, a great tradition, but I got there and we had no Twitter account, no Facebook account, no media, and these great things are going on. So I set up a Twitter account, started blasting that. Then I realized I wanted, before we rolled out any tablets or devices this year, we worked with Common Sense Media and actually became the first Common Sense certified school district in America this year, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It was pretty neat. But then we kind of took a step back and said, okay, now, so for example, I went to my marketing class, and they're making brochures and doing some business plans and some really cool things. But I said, to the students, I said, we don't have a Facebook page or anything. Can I hire you as our marketing team and run our social media campaign for our school district? And so all the student clubs and then principals, they started creating Twitter accounts, and they started tweeting. And then our students at our school district now completely run, unfiltered, our social media and Facebook page. And they get all their information off all the tweets that people are tweeting within the school system from teachers' classrooms, and it's really taken off so much. And so now, so I did a couple blogs through some national blogs this year on kind of telling these stories about these students and teachers really transforming how to get the good word out. And now actually I'm meeting with some people very soon to talk about going back to last year as a principal. Why are we tweeting out? Why are we Facebooking? And why do we become a digital citizenship school? So I think I'm going to have to go back and kind of tell those stories again through blogs, longer ratings of things we're doing and why we're doing them. So I don't know, I kind of saw like 2 revolutions within my career. Like, I think, Brian, I stopped blogging because there's different needs. I hibernated. Now I have to come out of hibernation because there's a need and a fill and a vacancy to do so.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I feel guilty because I haven't. There's a boatload of stuff I should blog about and share about what I'm doing because I'm doing so many new things. But in another way, I don't feel bad because I'm just so busy, and I'm keeping busy. And I think blogging is about reflection, and I do a lot of reflecting in other ways through Twitter, through talking to my colleagues, and so it's not like I don't need that outlet of the blogs like I used to when I was kind of like the lone wolf in my university who was the only one I knew of that was flipping, and I needed to kind of reach out. And when I started blogging, it was actually a conscious effort to make myself more visible about what I was doing to the world. And actually, it's worked because now I'm hanging out with you guys on the Flip Learning Board and getting invited to Korea and other things. So I think it's important to be public.
Absolutely.
And Brian mentioned that it was fun to go and look back at something from how many years ago. And it actually really is. It's really good for me to go back in time and see what was I doing 3 years ago. What did I plan to do that I didn't do that I could try again. Or your boss asks you for, what have you been doing all year? And it's really easy because you can just go back and look at your posts and produce the report as opposed to trying to remember what the heck you did last February.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's interesting, too, that you said that you have other outlets for reflection now. I think I was similar. I started when I was overseas in Korea, and I was our school was tech advanced, and they really pushed us. We had to have a website and do all this stuff. We were all Google all the way. So I was learning a ton, but I didn't have a good way to connect with other people doing the same thing in an international, we had a bunch of Americans there at the school, but we were kind of our own thing. So blogging really was the best way to get in touch and see what other people were doing, because there was no such thing as Google Hangouts, and I didn't really know anyone to say, hey, can I Skype with you? And there's no peek into stuff, and blogging really was the best peek into that. But you're right, now there's so many different outlets for reflecting. And I think it's important, like you said, to recognize that things work for some people and not necessarily for others. And so for me, sitting down and writing and just writing out stuff as I think through it is very, very helpful. But I could see the same thing happening in just a stream of tweets. Doing the same thing. It's just as visible, and it can be just as interactive, maybe even more so.
So Ken and Brian, you said you used it as a reflection tool, and I know a lot of teachers. I actually know some friends that they do a blog every single day at the end of the day, and just kind of like it's called reteaching and recapturing the moment of today. And I've always kind of looked at it as like a soapbox almost for me, to get up and tell stories and say things and kind of get some things that I say maybe in staff meetings that I want, like, oh, well, this teacher really said something really cool. I want to share to the world what they said.
And that's good, too.
So I always looked at, because, I don't know, I felt as a reflection tool, I just kept moving. I always feel like I'm moving forward. I'm never looking behind on things. Maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe I need to start reflecting more.
I think everyone takes out what they want. I mean, it's so personal. It really is.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of writing every day, and because I think it gets, it's easy to say, I'm going to share this because it was awesome. I did this today. It was great. And you don't ever, I think it creates this false notion that everyone online is doing just awesome stuff all the time, and I have really crappy days sometimes, like stuff just goes bad, and that's teaching. And it's nothing I can control sometimes, but in writing about it, if you're doing kind of the everyday, I don't do that approach myself, but if you do that everyday thing, it can highlight the fact that so what, I had a bad day, and I know somebody else did. And I enjoy reading those sometimes too, because
I did too.
It's not just my kids.
There's someone else out there. It's not just me.
Yeah.
There's a teacher who he won Teacher of the Year, National, and won all these awards. I'm thinking, he's got kids, and I'm thinking, how does this guy do that? How does he keep up with his life so much? And he wrote this really telling blog, and he posted it public for everybody to see how, even though he's winning all this stuff, he's feels like he needs to win some things because he's suffering through major depression in his life. And that's kind of his advice to kind of like travel and get. But when he's like sitting by himself, he's depressed, and I was like, wow, like that took a lot of guts to write, but I'm so glad he wrote that, because I think a lot of people feel like, wow, sometimes these, like I think Brian, you said, people think these people blogging are perfect sometimes, and they have just like this perfect life, and then they put out something and we're like, yeah, that's like kind of like good side, but I actually have this bad side here.
Yeah.
And I like that stuff.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, it's so true. I think it regrounds us all. It's like it's so hard to be lofty all the time, like to have the next perfect lesson or the next perfect day in school, and so we can write about it. And if that's all you're reading, you're going to feel inadequate all the time, And I think that's the hard part about it, especially, Ken mentioned getting started. I think that's the hard part about getting started, is because the people you start by following or start reading are the ones who are just posting all the time and who are known for posting great stuff, which is fine. But you got to balance it out. You got to find a way to take everything with a grain of salt and recognize the fact that this might have been the 10th year they did that lesson. This is the first year in 10 years it went as well as it did.
Mm-hmm. People
I think
tend to write just about the successes and not the failures, and I think it's
yeah,
important. It's
I'm
important
completely
to share
guilty
the failures
as well. Yeah, they're just as
human.
important.
But it's human. I'm going to mention
yeah.
a couple things here, guys, because we actually have 2 viewers.
Nice.
It was 3, but I think that was me testing the feed. So Nietzsche Frias, who's in Querétaro and is in the course. I'm going to read it in Spanish, then I'll try to translate it in English.
Right.
So, me parece interesante el comentario que hacen sobre el tiempo, porque muchas veces los docentes nos quejamos de no tener tiempo. Sin embargo, hacer aportaciones a través de un ejercicio de reflexión que se trabaja previamente no implica mucho tiempo para publicarlas. Quizá lo que no nos arriesgamos en es pensarlas y a comunicar. So she finds it really interesting, the comment about time for blogging, and that lots of time teachers complain that we don't have any time. But in reality, making these reflections on a blog really doesn't take that much time, and it's probably a good idea to just take a risk and think about it and get out there and communicate. So thanks for that post from Nietzsche, and hopefully I pronounced her name wrong. She'll probably tell me. But I really want people to, you can send me private email, or she's Google chatting with me right now, or Twitter, or whatever smoke signal you can send. Please send questions ahead of time in the link for the course. We have a daily page or weekly page. This is Unit 0. And at the bottom, there's a comment field on the course page, and you can put a comment with questions, or Twitter, or whatever. I'm sure it'll get more lively in the next week. So I remember when Brian was on, we had more questions last year. So that's an interesting reflection. Oh, there, she gave me a smiley. Thanks. She's on probably a minute delay because of YouTube.
There is a question on Twitter, but it's in Spanish. So Ken, I'll defer to you.
Helping us. Luis Miguel was in the course the first time I gave it inside a school at 2 years ago. How do I know that flipped class is for me?
Oh, wow.
There you go, guys. I'll leave that to you, and I'll watch the tubes.
Who brought that? What?
Luis Miguel. How do I know that flipped class is going to work for me, or it's for me?
Oh man, I don't know.
I'll put a side thing that John's 4 posts about the 4 hurdles of flipped classroom. The first T, the 4 T's: thinking, time, technology, and training. And that's about the first T, that the teacher needs to be convinced that they're going to flip before they do it, and it shouldn't be mandated from above.
Yeah, and I think it ties back to what do you want from your students, and what do you want them to accomplish. I think that I tell teachers often, hey, why don't you try flipping? And they say, well, I need to teach them that. And I said, don't you want to see them practicing that what you're supposed to teach them, like watch it before? And they said, yeah, I wish I could. I was like, well, just try it. And I'll tell you what, if you try it, I'll give you a good observation for trying it, or something that encouragement of saying, hey, it's okay to go do it. I think that's the biggest thing. That I got up in front of our elementary school building this year with the principal. We said to their staff, hey, teach how you want to teach. Take risk. If you want to get rid of your furniture, get rid of your furniture. Get new stuff. If you want to, teach. If the kid's on the floor, teach on the floor. Do it however you want. Makes you comfortable. And people started taking risk, and people started sharing it. And believe it or not, like I enjoy them. They give me inspiration every day, and I'm watching them because they're trying things that when I taught I wouldn't try because I was scared because people would, judge me. They don't care. They're judging their students and seeing if their students are learning, and that's what should count.
Yeah, I think I would tag along with that. It's what do you want your students to do? That's a great answer, and I think I would say what do you feel like you need to improve with, to get your students there. So what kinds of things have you tried? And I don't know. It's a really personal thing. Like it's like asking, why should I drink your brand of coffee? I drink the brand of coffee.
Brian shares what beers he drinks. If you're following him.
That's true. Yeah, you could drink the beer I drink. Drink good ones, drink bad ones sometimes. I think
I like that. You have a good lesson, you have a bad lesson. You have a good beer, you have a bad.
You know, I think with me flipping, it helped me. And I was lucky. You know, I started young. I was 23, and I was already bored with lecturing in front of my students. I'd done what I thought I needed to do, and my students were doing fine. But it was like I do this every day. You know, and so for me, it was kind of just what came up. It was an opportunity that came up, and I tried it, and I like it, and it stuck, and I think there's value in it. And you know, I've articulated that value before, and I'm not going to dive into that today because it's not where we are. But part of that, finding the value in that, is I think in the reflection process. You know, if we really want to get to the nitty-gritty, sure, yeah, my test scores for my students have gone up, and my Fs are now Ds, and I can say, like, this is data that backs it up. But, you know, I think anecdotally, I have much richer interactions with students. I have better relationships with my students, and because of that, they function better in my classroom, and they're more willing to go the extra mile for me. You know, and so it's something that allowed me to be a better teacher, not because of the content, but just because I needed to be more human in the classroom, and that let me do it.
Nice. I think sometimes teachers flip without even realizing that they're flipping, and because they don't know it's flipped learning. Because I mean, I walked in my art teacher's classroom during his planning time, and he has this large filing cabinet. He has a broomstick above it with a camera taped to the end. And he's drawing, like talking to himself, drawing and sketching out this portrait. And he's explaining, and I was like, oh, you're flip teaching, but you're actually like teaching and like you're making the videos yourself or drawing. He's like, how do you do that? He's like, well, I give the videos for homework. When the kids come in, I can actually help them teach as I go along. Instead of like sending them home and trying to draw on their own, and I'm not there to help them. I'm like, that's flip learning. He's like, well, I never heard of flip learning. And he's like, so I started talking to him, and like now he posts his videos and he shares videos, and he's like, you know, he's tapping into other artists watching videos, and he like loves it now. He can't, you know, that's like his thing. He sends me his videos. It's great to see.
Cool. Let me throw another question at you here. So this came in from Luis actually yesterday, but I'll repeat it. See if I can find it. I close. Oh no, it's there. Let's see, sorry. So, for me, we'll talk about this a lot later, but for me, flipping is the flip of control or responsibility in education. The students become more responsible for their piece of the learning, and we let go of some of that control. And so his point about if you let go of that control, then what's stopping from us just being replaced? Because we're not needed anymore. Brian touched on that with his comments about having time for his students. So for me, that's the answer. But I'll let you guys answer.
Well, that's a I don't know. That's I guess my job as a teacher is not to teach. My job is to have students learn. And I don't know, I think that's the danger sometimes, that we have to feel like we have to teach in order for students to learn. Sometimes we just have to let the learning happen. Well, not sometimes, but all the time. And in one way it may work differently than the other way, but I think that's the first hurdle that you have to get through is, yeah, I'm the teacher, but I'm not the content master. I'm not the one that has they can learn on their own. They do. Right?
And they always have.
I don't know if you're real big into the School in the Cloud, Sagata, Metro, and the self-organized learning environments, but we push a lot of that out. And our fourth grade teacher said it best. She goes, I used to think that I knew what to teach the students, but going through this method of self-organized learning environments and having kids research videos online to answer their questions, now I realize that instead of me knowing what I have to teach them, I know what they have to teach themselves and how to learn themselves. And that's more powerful for that. And I was like high-fiving, and I was like, yeah, you know. But I mean, I think you have to get over that hurdle that there's so many things out there that, I mean, that could teach you. I mean, I love sitting in front of the class and the teacher's teaching who the 21st president of the United States is, and I pull my phone out. I'm like, Siri, it's the 21st president. And it's just especially like SATs now. They're talking about SATs going online. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things out there that says like let just the learning happen.
What's your thought, Brian? Because it was kind of touching on what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think Nancy said it really well yesterday with like the control of the teacher is in the structure, right? I can control everything, not necessarily what the students do, but the path they follow as they do that to some degree. So the design involved, and I'm totally plagiarizing this. I'm not coming up with this myself. Nancy White.
Yeah, go back and listen to yesterday's. They're all recorded, kids. You can watch them.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat everything, but that's something that took me a while to learn too. And even this year, I don't have much tech access in my room. Like our school's not one-to-one right now. We're probably not going to be for quite a while, to be honest, right? And so I'm working with kids on their phones and trying to give them opportunities, and I'm fighting a lot of just distraction. And so instead of me, clamping down and trying to dictate, because I think that was causing the issues, I went in yesterday, and I said, okay, guys, we're gonna try something. Like, here's your notes. Yeah, this is the first thing you need to do. We had done an intro lab, trying to do more inquiry this year, so they'd done a lab on it. I had not done formal teaching, so that was the formal part of it. So up until that point, I had controlled their experiences. They did fine with the labs and done this and that and the other. And finally, when I was trying to direct the classroom around the lecture, I guess is really what it comes down to, the direct instruction component that really needs to be there. It just wasn't working, and I was fighting them, and they were fighting me, and so I just said, here, get it done. There's a little thing in the back you need to do as well, but I'm here if you need help, and it went so much better. Man, it went so much better. And it's totally counterintuitive, when you're fighting those battles, because you think, I don't have control, and what if a principal walked in, and this, and all these things start going through your head.
That's right.
And I think it really does get back to that. You need to be really deliberate with what you're doing with your students. Every little thing needs to be deliberate, whether they're doing a lab or they're working on a group project or making a review poster or doing notes, whatever that happens to be. And so now I've kind of found this flow where, the times I control are times when they cannot do things on their own. Today I had some equipment set up, and we were talking about waves, and I needed power and speakers, and this wire and all this stuff was set up in a very particular manner. They cannot handle that themselves. They're not meant to. So I control that time, and it was great because we recognize, so I think it's recognizing when you need to direct the attention and when you do not need to direct the attention, and being cognizant of the difference between those two times is really helpful.
Hey, Brian, I spent most of my career as like administrator, principal, and so forth, and you said something that I'm afraid my principal, might walk in and catch me, and the kid's out of control. But I always felt like no matter if it's flipped learning or anything else, and I had a teacher that was a high school teacher who was an amazing flip learner, and I really didn't understand it at first when she was like, everything was, like 24/7, she was flipping everything. And I was like, man, and then it's high school math. I was like, wow. And so she invited me in her class, and she explained to me what she's doing. She showed me how students are learning. She had students talk to me, and it made me part of the process as well with it. And I just was like, wow, that's great. How can I support you even more? And can I bring more people in to help you? Can I bring other teachers in to watch you? And I remember it was the biggest university in Pittsburgh. And put the name to it if you want. We had student teachers, and I remember a professor came in and said to the teacher. She said, well, we believe in teacher accountable talk, and we need our student teachers to be teaching and talking in front of the class. And my teacher's like, well, I'm not going to change my class because that's what you think's best. These are kids that are learning in my class, and here's the proof. And so they withdrew all the student teachers. And the professor came in and the supervisor came in and said, we need your teacher to change it and be more flexible. I said, I don't care if the kids are on the floor with their shoes off. If they're learning, I don't care. And the funny thing is, that was in August. Next semester, the spring semester at the university offered Flip Classroom 101.
That's awesome.
So I think. Hold on 1 sec. So guys, we're up on half an hour. I'm not in a hurry at all, but I don't feel bad if you say, I got to go cook dinner or put kids in bed or anything. So we can keep going. But I got a question here. Again, Nietzsche is all over us. That in Mexico, so during primary and even university, much of the time the teacher is the focus of attention, the person who teaches, and we've really left out student participation, and the role that that plays that's so important. That then, from this point of view of what we're proposing, the student has to take that opportunity to become responsible for taking that role away from the teacher. And I know we're going to talk about this a lot over the four pillars, but for me, that's the core. Like I said at the beginning, that switch of control is key and the hardest part. It's not just me letting go of control, which is really hard for some teachers. We're used to having control, maybe while we're teaching. But the biggest struggles I have is getting the students convinced that it's okay to do whatever they want, and I'm not going to tell them exactly what they need to do, depending on what level of flipping you are too.
Yeah, I think there's only so much you can do. If I'm doing my job well, there are very, very, very like zero excuses for a student to not learn something, and that may be hubris speaking a little bit. But I work very hard to make sure that there are multiple ways of a student to be successful. And if there's an active decision that they have made to not take those opportunities, like I can't do much about that. I really have no control there. And I think that's just a reality of what we've got. But the kind of the kickback to it is the fact that I can say to mom or dad or the student, even when I sit down and say, "All right, man, like we had this, and then we did this, and then there was this one, and then I sat with you, and then we did this, and you still have chosen not to do anything.
Right.
There is no excuse for that, and you need to recognize that you are making a poor decision.
Right.
And for some kids that works, they're like, oh yeah, that is kind of dumb, but you can't. Not everyone is going to make that. They're not going to recognize, and this is something I really struggled with last year. Man, I struggled really hard with that last year.
This time last year.
Yeah, looking at where's my responsibility? Is it to the one kid who's fighting me because he's like my project kid, or is it to the class as a whole? And how do I make sure that students are successful? And so you got to pick and choose your battles, and it's heartbreaking, and it stresses your heart out,
And I think one thing that's interesting there, Brian, I remember reading that post. I think it's actually one of the required readings on one of the pillars, actually, your post and posting to Audrey's post that inspired that post about the Hippocratic Oath.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that Flip allows me is I have more time to spend time with those kids, right? The ones that are struggling and are just going to fail because they're lost or they have problems at home or whatever the reason is behind that. If you're lecturing all the time, you don't reach out to those kids because you don't have time. And the fact that I spend so much time in the room with my students means I have the opportunity. And I feel more responsible that I have the time to reach that kid, and if I don't get through to them, I feel worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even though I put the responsibility in their hands, I'm still feeling very responsible for their success or failure of grabbing that.
I found more and more the teachers that are in front of the class lecturing a lot need to reassess the way they assess. And I think how you assess is how you teach. And so if you're in front of the class and you need students to regurgitate that information back to you on a test so you can give them the A, B, or C, then that's how you're going to teach. But if you're going to assess them on giving presentations or doing some form of research and critical thinking on top of it, then you're going to flip. And I think that teachers have to, and I think more and more teachers are realizing that just having telling kids to repeat states and capitals back to you is not really learning. And actually taking the states and capitals and why they became states and capitals and researching that and talking about it is more important. And so I think that how you assess is going to be how often that control is going to let go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Well, I think we're pretty close to wrapping up. coming up on the 35, 40-minute mark. And so I'm going to reach out. Like Nietzsche is definitely putting some questions in. I think it's going to take a while for people to get the hang of this. Again, this course, you don't have to be listening to this live. I would expect that you listen to the recorded podcasts or video casts. That's why we'll try not to make them too long to eat into your time. But I know Brian watched the one from yesterday, and I went back and watched it. It was interesting because while I'm participating, sometimes I'm not paying attention to what you guys are saying because I'm flipping over to Twitter to look for chat messages. There's a question from Gerardo about how to deal with parents' resistance to flip. I'll leave that as the last quick question, and then we'll wrap up.
Get one or two on your side. It's my best thing. You know, so if you have parents you trust, make sure kids are on your side. You know, have them explain to mom and dad what's going on in class. And the nice thing is that, you know, I mentioned a minute ago, like, we did this, we did that, we did this, and I did this, and then you came here, and it was after school, and then during class we did, you know, I sat with you. Kind of laying that out, and so they see that, yeah, you are teaching the heck out of their student.
Right.
You know, is that's what they care about. They care to know that you're trying to help them. It just the trying to help looks a lot different now.
Yeah.
And then once one or two influential may be a really loose term, but once a few start to hear about it, the word gets out pretty quickly.
Influence is really big now, Brian, because I've given talks to schools because the administrators asked me to come and talk about digital citizenship, digital identity, and because they have big issues with the parents groups of WhatsApp, where the rumors fly fast and furious and just wickedly fast about what's going on in the classrooms or what they think is going on in their kids' classrooms. So I think that's more of a case for being very open about your process and having it out there.
Yeah.
You're putting out what you're doing there.
I think having an open's big. But parents are always going, no matter if it's flipped or something. Some parents are always going to question because they're just not used to it. It's foreign language to them. It's not how they did it. I remember sitting in my office and a parent came in upset with me because this is probably 6 years ago. Our math teacher was flipping everything. And she was upset. She wanted to teach with a textbook, pencil, paper, traditional style. And I took a phone call while she was in there, and she started talking to her mother, and they started talking about going to the local casino. And the grandma wished they had the old slot machines, and the mother wanted electronic slot machines because it was faster, easier. She got better results from it. And I just let them argue back and forth, and I stopped them. I said, look, you're mad at her because she's doing something new that's more efficient to her through casino slot machines. That's your son teaching and learning a math class right now. I was like, just take what you did right now and apply it to what we're doing in math because he's learning a lot faster. He's in Algebra 1 in middle school right now, and I wasn't in Algebra 1 in middle school, were you? She's like, no way. I was like, let's embrace it and let's move forward and go to the casino and have fun.
Okay. So here's talking. Nietzsche's bringing more questions, but are hesitant to jump in and be live with us on these Google Hangouts on air, and it is a little bit intimidating the first time. And what I think I helped last fall when I worked with people was I had like just a private Google Hangout with them, and offline kind of, and less stress, and we made sure the technology worked. Bring your headphones, please. It really does help to isolate the feedback. And I'd be happy to chat one-on-one with people, either Skype or Google Hangout, and then get people, the participants that are in this course is much richer when we're all kind of hashing back and forth, or your questions coming through Twitter at least, or whichever mode you want to come in. So I want to extend that invitation to anyone who wants to come. We're doing this for 8 weeks, every Wednesday at, what did I say? It's 11 a.m. Eastern, and every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for about half an hour. And definitely think about kicking you out. And so I want to say thank you to Brian for joining us today, and thank you to Justin for joining us today as well. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
And your wisdom, and we'll see the rest of you all next week. Any closing thoughts, guys, before I hit the stop broadcast?
No, I think we had a That was it.
It was fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Brian. Good seeing you guys.
Have an awesome evening, guys. I'm gonna hit the stop broadcast, and then we can do the back channel.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, we'll see you at FlipCon too, everybody. So make sure you register for FlipCon.
Yeah, register for FlipCon. I got to send out that information really soon. The registration page just went up, and the call for participation should be up very soon.
Monday.
Excellent. All right.
Have a good night, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.